Hello again, and today we're going to be talking about color relationships. And in a former video, we talked about the color wheel. We talked about red, green, and blue, cyan, magenta, and yellow, and also mixing colors or using a color wheel based on red, yellow, and blue. So we're going to talk more about the relationships of colors in this ring or in this wheel that we have. And let's start by using a pigment profile or what we call a color theme in Howler. And we're just going to go here where it says pigments. We also have a tab called themes. It's same idea, but slightly different implementation. And we're just going to load a preset called RYB, I think would be the best one to start. And bear in mind, I have not premeditated this. I have not practiced this. We're going to start something and just see what comes out of it. So I'm going to load this one called RYB here, right here, RYB. That means red, yellow, and blue. And this gives us a color wheel based on red, yellow, and blue. These are the three primary colors. You can see them right here on the wheel: red, yellow, blue. And we have secondary colors of orange, green, and purple. This is the traditional color wheel used by artists. It's the same idea as the red, green, and blue, or sorry, it's the same idea as cyan, magenta, cyan, magenta, and yellow. It's the same idea. It's just kind of remapped so the colors have kind of different relationships to each other. You see here, you see blue and yellow are complements, meaning they're directly across from each other, and red and cyan are complements. But here you see red and green are complements, and yellow and purple are complements, and so forth and so on. So it's the same colors, it's all the same hues are there, except they're just kind of mapped differently. So we're going to start with that, and I'll do something so that redraws there. Okay, so we have this. Now that we have this RYB color picker, we can see our color relationships the way a traditional artist would have seen them. In other words, if we look at complementary colors, you'll see that yellow's complement is purple, you'll see that red's complement is green, and so on, and orange and blue, and so on. So this is really useful for creating artwork the same way a traditional artist would do it. And I'm thinking we've already talked a lot about complementary colors. We've done paintings where we use, I think, where we use complementary colors, right? If not, let's do a quick one. Let's do something. I'll just use the bristle brushes today, and just pick one. I'll use this barber brush. We'll do it. We'll just do an abstract, and we'll use two colors, two colors, complementary colors. We'll use red and green. Okay, so I'll lay down some. Let's see. I'll lay down some red. That's fine. Let's see. So I think I'll use a brighter red. All right, that's better. Just making an abstract painting of some sort today. And I'll lay down some complementary color. I use red. I'll take the complement, which is kind of green, and we'll put those next to each other. So you can see this particular color combination has a certain psychological effect. It's, there's no rule that says these two colors work exactly perfectly together, but as in practice, you can get a good kind of a shock value or kind of a high contrast. Since they're opposing each other on the color wheel, they're going to have a good color contrast with each other, as opposed to using colors that are next to each other. So you get that kind of that psychological contrast there. I think there's an old adage about having a yellow stripe down your back, so you can't wear purple. Well, if you look on the color wheel, purple and yellow are complementary. So that's something we could do. But today I'm not going to do complements. Today I want to do analogous colors. And analogous colors means colors that are next to each other on the wheel. So for example, if we had picked red, and analogous colors would be like purple and orange. So let's do that. Let's do a painting today with purple and orange. In fact, let's do um, maybe we'll do a split complement, uh, which means you have you take the complementary colors um, of like orange and green, or orange and this kind of bluish green. But instead of just taking those two, you take three, and you take this orangish green, but then you take like a purplish red, and you take like an orangish red, and that would be like a split complement. So maybe we'll do that today. So let's see. Um, in fact, let's build a palette using just these colors. Let's put some of these down here. Let's take some orange here, kind of mix these together a little bit, and we'll build a palette from this basically. And we'll use this kind of orangish green here. See, and they're kind of mixing together. You're getting these nice in-betweens, so forth and so on. We want some lighter colors and so on. Let's pick this up. I think this would be a good way to do this. Let's go to here, use the selection tool, and just grab that and do image. Let's see, crop to selection, and we'll store that. Okay, so we got a palette we can use. Remember, we have this little icon here that turns this into a color picker. Not even going to use the color wheel anymore. I'm just going to use the colors we mixed here. Now let's start a new image. That'll be fine. Let's do that. Let's use that for our image, and we'll use these three colors. This is a split complement. If we were doing analogous colors, we would just be using this red, orange, and green. So we're sort of using analogous colors plus a complement is basically what we're doing here. And hopefully we'll come up with a picture where all the colors are harmonious and it looks nice. So I was thinking about painting flowers. So let's paint some flowers today. Let's see. So this is not my best thing, painting flowers, but I'm going to try. I'm going to use the bristle brushes today, and we'll probably set brush minimum size to 0, so we can, when we paint, we can get kind of a fine point, go all the way from a small to a very large size. Doesn't do that by default, but let's go ahead and do that. I think what I want to do is carry on what we've been talking about, tone canvases and glazing. Let's use those techniques as well. So I'm going to pick this color. Whoops. I actually turned that off. Let's pick that color, and then I'm going to, that becomes our new primary color. I'm going to flip those so that becomes our secondary color and clear the screen to that color. There, we now have a tone canvas, and we are now ready to start painting. When I come back, we'll start painting on this. I'm going to take a little break, and we'll start painting. All right, we're ready to begin, and I haven't really decided what kind of flowers to paint, but I think I'm just going to dive in. I got a painting I did earlier of some kind of purplish flowers. I'll probably change them to use these colors here. But and then I have also a couple of roses in there and some, I think they're baby's breath or something. And we'll try to do that with the colors that we have. Um, so let's just dive in and start painting something. Not really sure what, but we'll try. Roses can be difficult. I don't. My eyesight's getting kind of bad, and such and such. But I'm gonna give it a shot here. Just paint something in there. We can always, come back to it and do more to it. Let's see. You can always paint that white in there and then paint back over it if you need a brighter color. So I'm just trying some things today. Can always start over again if we don't like what we've created. Let's see. All right, so There you go. That's, I guess, a rose. I don't know. But it's not about the fine details. We're doing an underpainting at this point. We can come back and paint in details later as we need them. We get the motion and the composition we want first. Come back later, do details. We got some beautiful variations of this blue color we can put in here. Let's say I really should be doing rose type leaves, not some kind of random thing. But I'm going to go ahead and do that for now. Let's see. I want to put some of these little purple flowers in here, except we really don't have much purple. So I'll use some white and then I'll glaze a little purple over it maybe. Let's see. And they just really simple flowers. Maybe there's a better way to do this. I'm just, I paint scary trees and magical forests. I'm not, flowers are sometimes a little bit above and beyond what I normally do. But let's give it a shot. Let's see. All right, so put some of that orange back in there for the center. And more of that green. Whoops. So glad we can undo stuff. Let's see. Sometimes you want highlights on something. Just paint them in. You can come back and glaze some color over it later. Let's try that and see how that goes. I add a layer, and I got to remember to make that white. And let's put some of this green over that. That's the wrong color. Let's see. So it's kind of light blue over it, maybe. Well, I did say I was going to work with a limited palette. So remember, we're only using 3 hues here. We wanted to use split complements. So we intentionally limited ourselves to see if we could create a painting with certain tonal qualities to it. So that's the whole theme here. It's not how many colors can we get in this. It's really trying to make a painting with a certain tonal quality or a certain appealing palette to it, more than just painting exactly the colors that you want. I want to take out some of the color out of this rose and make it more white. Let's try that. I think I'll store a copy of that layer, and then I'll just paint this out. Well, kind of interesting. I love these bristle brushes. They have such a beautiful blending quality to them. I'll just fade that halfway and see what happens. Just wanted that a little brighter. Yeah, interesting. Let's see. Want this to look like it has some leaves and things in it going on. Well, not leaves, but there's petals going on in there. Like that. Then I can always glaze or glaze those colors over there. Let's put another layer on top of that and use a real light version of this yellow maybe. Could be even lighter. I wish I'd put some really light colors in this palette, but let's just keep doing what we're doing. We can keep glazing into this. We make darker colors and darker colors here. We want darker colors in there. But remember, when we're glazing, we're building up darker layers of colors. Because colors are translucent or transparent, and they always create darker colors. They don't, unless they're fairly opaque, they don't usually create a lighter color. They almost always create a darker color. Even really bright colors like yellow will often, if they have enough pigment in them, they'll often create a darker color when you glaze them, like is what we're doing here. So, um, yeah, so I think we're getting across what we're trying to say here. I think I'll just use some of this negative space over here to just really have nothing over there, for now at least. Or maybe I'll put a few details in there still. Let's see. Still need some more of these little white flowers here. Use a smaller brush. Oops, wrong button. Let's see. Use a smaller brush to create these smaller. Little, kind of less prominent flowers in the background. I'll glaze over them with some colors. We got our center. It's really orangish. And we might still want to go darker on that. Just pushing them into the background more and more. Let's see. I'm liking this is kind of giving me darks here on this rose. And like I say, this is really not premeditated. This is just a, how do you say, this is just a, throwing out some ideas. I think I accidentally turned off color bleeding there. Just throwing out some ideas here. What something might look like, getting the composition and such and such. And you can always come back later and merge this and start working on refinements, of course. There's no, I think this needs another rose or something right in the bottom, maybe. Let's put it like right here. A little over here, maybe. All right, so let's see. It needed something. I get the feeling this rose here is going to be sort of the center of attention. So, we can do a lot more to this. And again, this isn't about how many colors we can get in there. It's about finding our shape, our composition, our motion, just what we want to say with our painting, and using a harmonious color palette to do that. So, let's decide at this point. At this point, we need just that one more rose to even it out. It needs to be like right here. So let's go in. We can always erase. Remember, we can erase things too. Just use some white and erase right here. All right. And we have a couple layers over this, but we can take those out too. Not a big deal. If you make a mistake, just erase it. Just take it out. All right. So we got, let's see. Oops. Just putting the motion in there. Just getting an idea of what we want to do. All right. So Um, just need to fill in a little background detail at this point. Just some of these little things, so you just know there's like something going on back here. Just some little things back here, but they're not like high detail objects. All right, so there we go. I think we said everything we need to say about this background. It's time to really just merge this and start focusing on what this foreground is going to look like. I might just add a little more of this in here. Too much, just to fill that out. All right, so that's about it. I'm going to merge it. No worries. Might want to store a copy. Now we can start working out details and such. Might use a different brush, a different blending type. Start adding some detail in here. Start adding some lightness into these petals. Can always paint this back out, put color back over it, etc., etc. You know, it's just, what do we want to say with the painting? What's our goal here? I do think overall it needs to be a little bit lighter, so we might come back when we're done and just put some lightness filters over it or something. Play with the colors. But for right now, I'm pretty happy with what we've got going on. Should be like a cup in here, kind of like I'm not an expert on roses, believe me. There should be a light side and a dark side, etc., etc. But I am no expert on roses. Then there should be these petals here, of course, and so on. Just kind of getting the motion right now. All right, so there's that. Let's get this kind of working a little better. Don't want to overwork this. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Come back later. Whoops. Sometimes the tablet just goes crazy. It starts doing its own thing. It's okay. It's not going to take us too far out of the zone. All right, so wish I had a slightly in-between color. We can come back later and pick those colors off screen to get those in-betweens. Kind of liking what we have here. This is the underpainting. We can come back later and do refinements like we did before. We spent an extra 20 minutes on that fruit painting, and we really did refinements. But here, we have our painting. All right, I'm going to do away with that and this. I'm going to save a copy, and when we come back, maybe we'll do refinements. So I hope this has been interesting. This was our tutorial on doing color harmonies, on color relationships. We did basically what was a split complement, meaning we did two complementary colors, but instead of taking the complement, let's look at our color wheel here again. Instead of just taking the two complements, we took one complement color, like green, and then we took two analogous colors. So we took like something like green, and then purple and orange, or something to that effect, or similar to that idea. And we created hopefully a color combination or color harmony that works for us. And that's about it. That's one type of color relationships. There are others. There are triads. There are other things. There are analogous. There's monotone colors where you have only a single hue in an entire painting, where you only have value in a single hue. and those kind of things. Those are all things we could probably look at some point. But let's talk about that later. Thanks for watching. If you want to go ahead and do the tutorial with me, then in the next one we can go ahead and do a refinement to it and go from there. So talk to you later, and TTFN.